feedback. Hold
Uh-oh.
on. Okay. Is that better?
I can hear you fine.
Okay,
I didn't
good.
get any feedback.
I think I was too loud in my own head.
Oh, okay.
That's not good. That's not good. Welcome to, what are we doing tonight? This is, gosh, my brain is fried tonight. Okay, we are doing the month of interviews. And tonight
Yeah.
I am with lovely Miss, this side, Chrissy Neuymer Smith.
Hi.
And I think a lot of you know of or hear her lovely voice on a weekly basis on her podcast, but now you get to put a face to that. And if you vogue it out. And I will say one thing about this woman here sitting next to me is she never talks about herself.
Mm-mm.
She talks a lot about everything else, canine,
I do. Yeah.
and grooming, but she does not talk about herself. So we don't know a lot about her. Well, probably a lot of you don't. I do, because I've been working with her for a couple of years now.
But then people get to know my laugh and my sense of humor. Yeah.
You do have, it's very different, and not in a bad way, in a pleasant way. But yeah, it is, it's fun. You keep things light.
I try to.
Yeah. The floor is, you have been an eye opener for even myself with a lot of the things that I have learned from you and picked up from you, and just tidbits. And I don't even know if you even realize that you do that, because there's just from my watching and I might not be on the floor, but I still watch.
Oh, we know.
I know. I'm that creeper in the sky.
Everything is being broadcast, and that's good, like full disclosure. But then I'm used to working in people's homes as a house call groomer. I don't have any habits that I wouldn't do in public, because I've been in the public eye in their living rooms and in their kitchens, and and just doing my thing.
All right. So first off, let's start with you. Tell me, just like we were talking about off camera here a few minutes ago, tell me about you, your likes, your dislikes, maybe not, you don't have to tell us your dislikes if you don't want, but I know you have some interesting hobbies that I'd like to
I do have some interesting hobbies.
Yes.
Yeah. I love crafting, but then I think a lot of groomers do. Like, we're drawn to things that we make. So I do a lot of different types of crafts. Yeah, I mean, I've got a blanket I'm in the process of right now on my knitting needles, and I know how to tat lace. It's a weird thing to know how to do.
I don't even know what that is.
Very popular in the 1800s.
Oh,
I do historical reenactment stuff.
Are those collars that they go over the dresses?
Some of them were.
Okay.
Some of them were like tablecloth type things, and you tend to think of like doilies, but I think most of the doilies were crocheted. But tatting lace is kind of neat. I don't know. Okay. But I do historical reenactment stuff, so I'm involved with the Society for Creative Anachronisms, the SCA, and
which
we
has
do
nothing to do with dogs or
Middle Ages reenactment stuff. Yeah, I used to get into armor and sword fight out on the field. On my vacation, I'm teaching stuff like knitting and weaving and tatting and spinning and stupid stuff. Leather work. I just have a whole bunch of hobbies. And that's where I met my husband.
Right. Was he growing flowers off to the side?
My delicate flower. No.
I have to, because I absolutely love that. Here we have little tiny, and you are small, Chrissy, in her armor, and she's got, her husband is a good sized man.
And you would never look at him and think delicate flower at all. No.
A delicate flower. I love it.
Yeah. One of my favorite pictures. I can't find my copy. I'll ask the friend who took it, but I'm in my armor and I'm looking out on the field, and my husband's behind me, just making sure I'm all buckled in. And he's a real.
Is that when you're serious, when you're in your armor?
I'm never really serious.
Oh, okay.
No,
All right. I'm just wondering.
no. I mean,
That's
when
the
I'm in my
question
armor,
'cause
I'm making jokes like, "Does this make my butt look big?"
okay, there it is. I should have known. It was there somewhere.
Never serious.
That's okay. You don't have to be.
There you go, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
dislikes, things like
Yeah.
crumbs in the butter, drive me crazy.
Really? I would have
Oh my
never
god,
thought of
yeah.
anything like that.
Yeah,
Crumbs in
things
the
like that
butter,
drive
like
me crazy. Crumbs
breadcrumbs?
in the butter, yes. Like, clean that knife off, leaving crumbs in the butter. Ah!
Ah,
I don't know.
interesting. Good to know.
No, but the thing is that, I used to have a lot of problems with anger, and even as a kid, I recognized that that's just not healthy for me, and I just learned how to cope with things in a very different way, and I do things that make me happy, and I try to make people around me happy, and if I have someone who's a true leech and time suck who hates being happy, I just distance myself from them if I can. I still love them, but over there, like I can't let myself fall down that slippery slope because you know, Rick has a story about me being angry one night. It wasn't at him, but it was when we first started dating and I threw a butter knife into a door jamb. I
That's
know you can't
true.
even believe that, can you?
No, no, that's a good shot. Good. I mean, I guess I wouldn't want to be on the other side of the door.
It sunk in it. And he's like, okay,
So in
how
other words,
about
don't piss off Chrissy.
I
She's
got
not a delicate flower.
no, no. I remember I got so angry once my car kept skidding in the snowbank and just had to push it out like over and over again. And I'm like, I think I lifted it that time. I was just so
I could
angry. It
oh
was a
my
little geo
goodness.
tracker. It wasn't a heavy car.
Oh, it wasn't anything big. That's like a
Yeah.
micro thing. It was like,
Hmm.
but they were cute. They
They
were
were
very
cute.
cute.
Yeah. You rub them against the carpet to get the static electricity going.
Mhm. So, so from that, where did grooming come into play? How did you get involved in the industry? I know you went
Yeah.
to school, to a trade school. I
Mhm.
almost said a culinary school. Yeah, no,
Agricultural school. Yep.
that one.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
agriculture.
8th grade, they did this presentation like, hey, this is an agricultural high school you could go to, and like all these pictures, and it's a farm. And I was like mesmerized, like, that's things that people do for work. I really had no idea. And just all the animal stuff just drew me in. The first year you work on everything, the plant science majors, the animal major, you do all of it. And then my first summer job was at a boarding kennel and working with dogs. And I fell in love with grooming and training at the same time.
Hmm.
Never looked back. I mean, I have lots of interests, but those two were always right up at the top. And on my lunch breaks, I was watching the groomers, and then I'd stay after work and go to the training classes. I was a very ambitious 14-year-old.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
not usual
I was so
anymore. It
into it.
was, yeah. But when you do find that passion and that niche
Mm,
and you just go and it runs and it just
yeah,
goes.
and I still
So
love it.
I know you do.
Mm,
You do love it and you are very good at what you do. There is no doubt about that. So for those if you're joining us or just starting, Chrissy, we talked about your podcast, that you have a
mhm.
podcast. So what inspired because you have gone through were you a groomer first and a dog trainer? How did that dynamics roll? I know
They
it
kind of
happened at the same time, but
they kind of
where
grew
did
at the
both of
same
you
time.
go? Okay.
Yeah, they kinda grew at the same time, but they're different fields. So, they're both entirely unregulated, self-regulated, if you will, in very parallel kinda ways. But I learned about dog training while I was working at that boarding kennel, which I actually stayed there off and on for about 10 years, because that
Good
was my first
longevity.
job as high school, and then I mean, I worked other jobs, but that was a constant, if you didn't work Christmas, uh, but I worked there for a long time, and, I would stay for the training classes, I was, working on some of that, I was working on my own dogs, well, my own dog, neighbors' dogs, things like that, any dog I can get my hands on and just kind of
Mhm.
teach them a little bit, the dog grooming was working there too, and doing brushing, bathing stuff. And I mean, you start off with just washing dogs, but
Yeah.
yeah, so I did a lot of that stuff. And then later on, I did an apprenticeship for grooming. So I did my certification through an apprenticeship back in 91, 92 that year. And
Okay.
but that's after graduating 4 years of animal science, high school. I graduated 89 from that. And yeah, but that I never really separated the two. I will say though, it took me a surprisingly long time to merge the two, like to bring the
Okay.
training to grooming and the grooming into training.
Yeah.
I don't know why it was so difficult, but I think that that's a common story. I think a lot of us were like, why weren't we using those same training principles here? You know, and it took me a long time to figure it out.
So when did that kind of start clicking?
I'd say about 97, 98.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
that's a
Thinking about
fairly
what
long
job
time
I was
because
at. Yeah. Um,
that
because I'm
that
thinking
makes
about which
it
job I was at that time, where I was the groomer, and I was like, I think I can help this dog be better for this. And I used to do a lot of cats back then too. Like, I think I can help this cat have a better time and work toward helping them be better, you know? And that's really when that interest of putting the two together sparked.
that's kind of before its time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because well, and I say that if you were practicing it then, so then you've had these years of doing this and starting this and the awareness of it, and now that you have that full exposure of it and the years of practice, now you can convert that to others. But had you
Yeah.
not followed that progression yourself, it might not have become what it is today.
Right. Right. If I didn't learn about dog training also, it might never have clicked for me. You know, like if I
Right.
wasn't doing both. Um, and then methods change so much too. So modern dog training is so much different than it was even 5 years ago or 10
Hmm.
years ago or 50, like mid 90s, I was all about clicker training.
Yeah.
Mid 80s, I was choke collars, prong collars, alpha rolls, and dominance. Because that's what was pretty common then. But I was really lucky in my first job when I was 14 at that boarding kennel, which was Aintree Kennel in Boxford, Mass. And Judy Bellier gave me my start, you know. But I was lucky to be surrounded by adults who were like, "Hey, we learned a new thing," you know, and they were going to conferences and talks and seminars and just
So this was for
inspiring you
dog
to learn.
training.
For
Okay.
training, for grooming, for anything
Only
dog.
for grooming. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I got a chance to be around all of it. And then when I worked as a vet tech, because I worked at a vet tech a couple different times, once in the early 90s and then again in the early 2000s. And in the early 2000s, especially, it's like, can we help these dogs be a little bit better for their vet visits? You know, and I was in working with a holistic vet who said, hey, let's try that. And, you know, let's
And
explore that more.
that's kind of how that fear free started too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's because that's
And
a
I'm glad to
relatively
see it's
new.
becoming really popular because I
It
think
is.
people at
Yeah.
first were like, "That's crazy," you
Yeah.
know,
Well,
and then they
we
see results and they're like, "How can I get those results? I thought it was crazy, but maybe it's kind of fun."
yeah. You definitely have to utilize it differently than how they package it for the groomers, but
Yeah.
it'll come. And again, it's a progression. And as groomers, we should be able to see and take and utilize and piece it together ourselves too, because that's part of being creative and that's our creative flair, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think that I did the fear-free groomer program and the fear-free trainer one,
Training.
so I'm
Yep.
certified for both of those. But I gotta say, I think that it was written through a very trainer-centric point of view.
Yeah, that's
Non-groomers don't really understand the grooming process.
mhm.
So there are a lot of things that I'm like, that's going to be really difficult for most groomers to implement. You know, like, yeah, we're not going to get on our hands and knees and crawl around on the floor and just not book anybody for a Saturday and follow a dog around with a pair of cordless clippers and some peanut butter. It's just not going to work. But we can work on those things or have owners working on those things so that dogs can have a better experience when they're closer to the real world.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of that didn't really make sense for dog grooming. You calling your cat over?
No. Ellie, I was trying to get my husband's attention because Ellie's destroying the blanket.
Oh.
Yeah, as long as she's that's the rabbit? Oh. Okay. I was like, oh no, not a real rabbit. Sorry. Oh God, we just got all kinds of what? No, it's
not. No, right? Somewhere Angie's going, what?
Sorry. So as a little, I have a shawl that when I was little, I must have been 3 or 4, and my dad bought my mom a rabbit coat and bought me the matching shawl as a little. So she found it and gave it to me, and the cat loves it. So it's on my bed, and he sleeps on it on the bed, and he's like, "Oh, I've got my rabbit." So he thought she was chewing the rabbit Oh goodness. Okay.
Animals are going to be animals, right?
They're gonna be animals, and she's part dachshund, so hey, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
So all of this has tapered into your courses and classes and your everyday grooming style.
Yeah.
What made you start thinking for the podcast? Because that's been going now 3 years.
Yep. Almost 3.5 at this point. Yeah.
I mean, that's
it's a lot of work.
It's a lot. Yes. So tell me a little bit about that, because I do know of the podcast, but just the startup and how you got your go on that.
So my podcast started off as me trying to write a book, and I have a book in me. I just can't seem to get it on paper. So every time I'd write something up and I'd get it started and I'd look back and go, I need to change that because it's this ever changing point of view. And then I heard about podcasts. I'm like, I can talk. I mean, you almost can't stop me. So I can just get on and as things change, it would make sense in that format. Like a podcast format, there are things that I said in earlier episodes and I'm like, I'm expanding on now because I learned something new. And that was 3 years ago. And it makes a lot of sense in that format to keep changing it up and expanding and growing. Yeah. But the book just was so hard. I tried the book for a long time. Yeah, it was really difficult.
I got some ideas for you.
Oh, really?
I do. Yep. I can help.
Well, through my course, all of my lessons, the presentations that I do in the lessons have video transcripts that are lightly edited. So I have like pages and pages and pages upon pages of material out there that should probably put together and spiral bound, right?
Yeah. No, I do. So, well, that's really cool. How do you come up with your weekly topics? That's a lot of information. And to keep
hard.
It so consistent and to keep going at it and you're not like one of those podcasters that's interviewing people or bringing others in. So it is just you.
It's just me. And it's hard. Amazing. There have been times where I skipped a week because I was like, you know what? I don't have the performance level, right? Like each of those is not only a research project, which actually has, if you want to like really excel at whatever it is you do, assign yourself a research project every week to present. Man, that has been super, super interesting to do. But each one of those is a research project. Like sometimes I'm looking up definitions, sometimes I'm looking up sources, and I'm like, okay, I got to present this. Yeah, it's hard. Sometimes I find my inspiration in my work week, a particular animal or a conversation with an owner. Sometimes it's stuff that I see people discussing on Facebook, like why are dogs doing this thing? Sometimes it's stuff that I see trainers saying. Because trainers are non-groomers. They don't understand our world, just like groomers don't understand the training world, where we rarely talk and we have entirely different tech talk. An e-collar for dog trainers is entirely different than it is for groomers.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
E-collar for dog trainers is an electronic collar. For groomers, it's an Elizabethan collar.
Yep.
Groomers call it holistic grooming. Dog training calls it cooperative care.
Huh.
There are
I
just
really
so
like
many
that. That's
things that
really
are.
good, though. I like
I
that.
like cooperative care as a term better
Yeah.
because it really
That,
speaks to what we do without being
yep.
new agey or falling down the new
The
agey
rabbit hole.
track.
Yeah.
I'm okay with being new agey, except that I think that sometimes it excludes people who are more scientific.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Because not everybody has that mind, which is really great with what kind of our basis is at the school too, because we can combine
Yeah.
it.
I mean, I'm happy to say, we want to keep our energy up and that, but
Yeah.
I can also, for people who can't buy into energy, I have to come up with something more scientific, like
Hmm.
you set the mood and the tone at your grooming table,
Yeah.
you know? And so if you can be more cheerful and more relaxed, the dogs are going to be more cheerful and more relaxed for you
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
stress just passes on to everybody.
It passes on to everybody. Oh, don't
Oh,
we
it
know
really
that?
does.
Stress passes on to everybody. And it just like
And it just keeps
wildfire.
going and going. Sometimes you just kind of shake it off.
Oh, yeah. So,
It's like, okay, Chrissy needs some peanut butter crackers because, like,
oh,
start getting a little
wait,
stressed.
that
I'm like,
happened at
I
Christmas,
need a
right? When
snack.
we were grooming together, Chris, we were like, "There's no food," and Chrissy's like, Derry, you want a cracker?"
Want a cracker?
Crackers.
Sometimes you just need a snack, right? If
Sometimes
I
you need a
start getting annoyed that the grooming arm always seems like it's in my way, there's a chance I need a snack.
Yep. True, true. So, who's your biggest mentor?
Um, Gosh, there are so many
Ah,
people that I look up to. Um, I would say that it would be Casey Cover. Casey
okay.
Cover
I
developed the
don't know who
SATS
that
bridge and
is.
target training technique. And I've worked with her personally a couple of times, and I've been to her seminars. And her just kind of no nonsense style about like, well, we could explain it to the dogs, like she's worked with zoo animals and stuff, and she's been so helpful. And then there are bunches of other people that I've been like taking their classes, watching what they do. Terry DiMarino,
Mhm.
definitely,
Yep. You're definitely not the
and
first one to say that in this
yeah,
group of us.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Michelle Knowles,
Yeah.
I mean, certainly Melissa, like there's a lot of people that I have been learning from. In the dog training world, there are Ian Dunbar. Don't know if anybody's familiar with Ian Dunbar.
So you have books. We have some of his books, don't
Yep.
we? Yep.
Yep. Have some of his books. He was one of the earliest people to say we should be doing puppy kindergarten.
Mm.
And that was back when we used to wait for dogs to be about 6 months old so that they can handle leash corrections better. And you
Hmm.
think about that now and you're like, what were we thinking? But that was the norm. And he's like, we don't need to do that. We can teach them to be good much younger, and some real groundbreaking work there. So,
Interesting.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I follow.
Yeah, no, you have to. I mean, it's like that for everyone that I have talked to
Mhm.
and interviewed so far, leading through you is I'm still learning. I'm still growing, and this is not the end all for me. So
Yeah.
we have to because you can't stop learning because if
Hmm.
we're passing it on, no matter what it is, you still have to be a level above and a level above, and you just got to keep growing. So,
Yeah. And I'm
um,
loving the continuing ed opportunities right now in grooming, because in the dog training world, for me to keep my certifications, I need a required amount of continuing ed. And they have to be approved continuing ed. Like there's a process for that to
yeah,
maintain your professional levels. And I'm really pleased to see so many groomers doing that. And that there are a couple of their like saying, hey, that's part of like, was it PGC? That's part of
yeah, yeah. You can
their
be,
requirements. And
yeah.
it'll make us all, stay up to date in a way that sometimes we have trouble with.
Well, I think that is one thing that COVID has really helped our industry is that there's a lot more online opportunities now whereas it
Mhm.
wasn't as readily available online. Those of us hadn't caught up to that per se, and now it's at your fingertips. There's no reason to not. And it's affordable when you can do it affordable. If you can't go to a grooming expo at a conference, there's still World Groom, and it's all online. And I think Mary
Mhm. Mary
Aquindo is
Aquendo.
doing a lot of summits, 2-day summits.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's great that these online have all popped up and that the community has just rallied to continue it beyond.
Yep. And then there
So,
are people who have their own YouTube channels,
mhm,
sharing lots of information on there. Barkley has Groomer TV, which
mhm.
often does, they're showing what's happening at the competitions,
Yeah.
you know, and I
You can
mean, there's
still
a lot
watch
of
it even
fun
if you're
stuff.
not there.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
sit down and watch grooming competitions if I'm not there.
Mm. So, how rewarding is this for you?
I love to teach. So if someone's listening to me geek out on grooming and training, I'm a pretty happy camper. So
Okay.
I will say it's been a lot of work though. Like coming up with my program and those 4 courses is
Mhm.
a lot of work.
Yeah. It's a lot of work. Yep.
A
And
lot
you're
of
gonna
work.
have to go back and go, "Oh, now we gotta update it,"
Always
because
updating.
you're gonna
Yeah.
be coming up on a year. So, do you wanna tell a
Mhm.
little bit about how your courses work and the flow of them?
Yeah, sure. Um, so each program is there are 4 courses in the program, but each of those courses is about 8 weeks long. There are 8 weekly classroom settings on Zoom. So we actually are sitting down together through Zoom and
A
discussing
virtual classroom. Yep.
virtual classroom. Yep, it's not self-paced. I need to be able to talk to you and make sure that you're getting the idea of what we're doing because behavior isn't something you can memorize. It's something you need to learn the thought process behind. You know, every dog's going to be different. So
Mhm.
I need to make sure that people are getting that information and understanding how to adapt it. But it's a flipped classroom, which means that before we have our classroom time, you're going online and looking through the materials that I set out for you, whether that's a presentation or video or an article or parts of chapters from a book. But you read through that stuff and then we discuss it that week. And I try to make that usually about 20 minutes worth of work at a time because we're all busy professionals and it's easier to fit that into your day. And if you need to go back and review something, it's not like you have to go back and review 2 hours worth of video. Just try to make it sympathetic to what people really need to do,
Yeah.
you know. And yeah, so each course gets a little bit more
More
difficult
in
as we
depth.
go,
Okay.
you know. Um, but I think that the first one is something that whether you follow through with all 4 of them, the first one is really important to know, like, okay, how are we getting in our own way? Because we can just learn about some of the real basic stuff,
Mhm.
and also some of the ways that we make things worse
Yeah.
because we accidentally teach dogs to hate grooming.
Yeah, we do.
We
And you
do.
said it, we accidentally do it not realizing it.
I
So
do. I still do it once in a while, and I'm like, "Oh, Chrissy, you know better. Why were you on autopilot?" You know?
as you gotta turn off everything around you too sometimes. But
30 years of grooming in a particular way,
yeah,
and
yeah. So it is something that your first course is readily available to anybody, and you can get the basics, and if you choose to move on, you can, and otherwise you still have that first course. So for anyone who's wondering about it, you don't have to take all 4. None of our programs actually at the school do you have to take all of the courses. You can start in the level 1, and some of the level 2s are available as well. But it usually, once you get into that 300 and 400 level, you have to have the progression of the first 2.
yeah, yeah.
But
They each go after each other,
after each
but
other,
they
so you
all
got to
have
think about it
value.
like like
Yeah.
school. You're in your freshman
Mhm.
year, your sophomore, your junior, and your senior,
Mhm.
and then you
Yeah.
graduate and get your diploma.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
And
that's
I
what
think
this
that,
is.
I think my program's a little bit different just because my point of view is kind of unique,
Yeah.
amongst trainers and amongst groomers because I'm so solidly in both worlds
Mhm.
that it gives me a unique point of view. That when we're talking about dog grooming procedures, I'm fluent in those. I do those every day like the rest of the groomers. And when we talk about training procedures, I'm fluent in those because I do those every day like the trainers do. And just trying to meld those two together. So I think sometimes as groomers, we're taking behavior advice from other groomers, but not necessarily from people who study behavior,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And trainers do the same thing. They're like, oh, I know all about nail trimming because I've had 8 dogs in my life. And as groomers, we're like, 8 dogs that you've done nails on? Like, is that Monday? You know, we're like, that represents one day of a week, you know?
Mhm.
Um, so it's just kind of a unique point of view. And I used to be a vet tech and I've worked with cows and goats and pigs and chickens and horses. And, you know, I do dog sports with my dogs too. So, you know, it's just a very different point of view. And I clown around a lot. So hopefully people have fun.
You do. You do. Your class, you've got 2 right now, and
I've
I
got
get
2 right
nothing
now.
but, "Oh my god, we love the class."
Oh, good. I can usually get them laughing.
Well,
I do demonstration. I'm like, oh, so here's your dog. Ruff, ruff, you know, and they're like, oh, God, Chrissy, you're kidding. I'm like, hey, sometimes you just got to bring out the hand puppet.
well, at least you're not, like, setting up and you've got the backdrop and the the music, and you're like, "Hmm, now what's this dog doing?"
No, no, no.
Though you could train your delicate flower to do those for you.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
That way
Yeah.
you could be talking and he could be acting that out.
So I'll tell you, he, I was telling him I was trying to come up with questions for the level 200 test. And he has been around grooming and training long enough that some of the silly things he was coming up with, he's like, so when I wash my dog in Dawn dishwashing liquid, I should follow it up with what? And I'm like, oh my God, stop. You're killing me. No, stop.
Yep.
He's been around it long enough. He's like, so if we shave down our border collies, I'm like, stop, stop,
Yeah,
stop.
yeah. Well, that see, now that could be like a trick question too.
Yeah, there you go.
You
Which
could be
one of these
really you're
questions did
level
Wick come
200
up with?
You're gonna be like, "What exactly are you guys teaching over there?"
I know, right?
Let's not go that direction, okay? We're over that. We know where we stand, right?
Well, and I think it's funny that my husband, just like by listening to my "Let me tell you what I did today," is so on top of this stuff, you
Yeah.
know? It's kinda funny to me. Yeah,
That's cool. That's cool.
yeah.
He's very supportive of it. He's very open to it. I mean, you commute up to the school 2 days a week. It's an
Mhm.
hour each direction, and Lori
Hour each
does
way.
the hour
Yeah,
each way every day, and
yeah.
you guys
And then I
really
get home and do the live stream on Monday.
Mondays, yep, and then
And
you have
Wednesday, when I'm at the school, I come home, eat dinner, and then do a class in the evening,
class. Yeah.
you know? And
Yep.
yeah, he's
Well,
like,
we can
"Oh,
work
a couple
around that
days I don't
schedule.
see you."
Alright, so I got a question.
Yes.
If you were an animal, which
Mm,
one would you be?
I think I'd be a border collie. I think
You're
so.
not hyper, though. Oh, okay. Was
Hmm.
that challenge
Like,
accepted?
am I not? Maybe you've just
Okay.
seen content worker border collie.
Yeah. Oh,
Border
that's true.
collies aren't necessarily hyper.
Yeah, that's
They
true.
could be hardworking, content, steady, do my job, you
Yep.
know, find the joy in the job, move sheep all day, you know.
Alright, so outside of the dogs,
Mm.
what animal would you be?
Mm. Outside of dogs. That's a good question.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. Probably some sort of a songbird.
Yeah?
I'm always like kind of happy singing along. I love flowers, and which is particularly girly for someone who's not girly. I'm like, hey, the
True,
birds
you're
are
not
singing,
really.
the flowers are out, and
Yeah.
outside enjoying the sun. Yeah, I'd say songbird.
All right, that's good. I like that. I like that. So where do you see this going?
I would love to see more and more groomers like have a really thorough understanding of behavior, you
Mhm.
know, and the ones who are having some trouble and don't want to learn a lot about behavior, going to my students and my graduates saying, hey, I need help with a dog, you know.
Mhm.
That's really my goal, is to have this other specialty that's starting to develop, and just help it develop more, you know, because I'm
Yeah.
not the only one doing it, but you know, it's another specialty. And you know, much like if I have a dog that I'm like, I'm not really sure how to handle this skin and coat, but you've gone to the vet, you've gone to the vet dermatologist, and I know who I need to talk to next for you know, and follow
Yeah.
through on what Michelle says, or, you know, like that.
Yep.
And just for us to be able to specialize more, you know?
Yeah. It's coming. I think we're really
It is.
starting to see that
Yeah.
happening now, and with the I feel like with all of you and Melissa and Michelle and Mindy, you guys just bring so much Jennifer to the table to be able to do that for everyone, which is why I love
Yeah. And
collaborating with you.
yeah. And to be around so many people with such an interesting perspective,
Mhm.
you know, like, ooh, I never thought of that. You
Yeah,
know, like I gain something every time I talk to someone else with a different point of
yeah.
view. Yeah, they're great.
It is neat. It is neat. We've
It
had
is
fun.
neat.
It's been a really good progression over the last few years. The build
Yeah.
up. The
Yeah.
build
It's
up
been a
has
lot of
been great.
fun.
So I'm just going to ask really quick, what's some advice you would give to anybody watching that's interested in getting into this, or wanting to go in this direction?
Um, so I would say that if you're interested in adding like some more behavior knowledge to your groomer background, or some training knowledge to your groomer background, and
Mhm.
some grooming knowledge to your training background, um, you can listen to my podcast. I know it's seems like a shameless prompt, but you know, but
No, and
it's
I don't mean it to be
there
that way,
are
but it
yeah,
it
but
is the
yeah. Um, but I have this podcast out there that's entirely free. I don't have any sponsors because I felt that that just pressured me. There are just times I need a week off because it's a lot, you know. I
Yep.
just put it out there because it's my passion project. So get over and listen. And every week, or just about every week, there's about 20 minutes worth of something involving grooming and training together.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's talking to customers, sometimes it's talking to other professionals, sometimes it's, you know, like they're about 50 hours worth, you know, so
Mhm.
it's a good place to start. And
It is
then
a great place
you
to
know,
start. And I'm gonna ask you and
mm,
challenge you,
mm,
make sure you share that on the Pet Pro Educators, because that has a
mm.
good group of following. So every time you put your podcast out, put it on that website, put it in for
Oh,
on
okay,
the Academy page. Those are your platforms to
all right.
utilize. I created those for you guys, and that's your space as well. So you don't need me to tell you you can post that there. But I'm gonna be
Okay,
watching for them, okay? Because it's
all right.
just one more avenue for it. So,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
would love to see them on there because this is all about you.
Well, and I think that if anybody's wondering about would I want to take her class, what is her teaching style, I invite you to the podcast. That's my teaching style. I've had so many people who met me in person and said, "You sound exactly like you do on the podcast." I'm like, "Yeah, because that's just me. That's just
That's
genuine me."
Yep.
And I'm usually laughing and goofing off and picturing a person. So I know sometimes people think podcasts are interview shows, but mine isn't.
Yeah.
So
No, yours is
um,
it's different. I said that. It's
mm,
different.
yeah, yeah.
I like the interview shows. So if
I
I
like
were to
interview
do one,
shows. Yeah.
I would be the one. I'm really liking and enjoying talking to you guys and getting this perspective from you. So
Yeah.
this has been invigorating for me.
Interview shows are fun. I was on the
Yep.
Traveling Groomers recently, and they made me play my
No.
ukulele.
Mhm. I can imagine with Chris on that, you were.
Yeah, yeah, had to.
'Cause she's
Um,
kinda like that too.
yeah, a little. Um, but, like, but I think that, if people are wondering about, like, what kind of things they can learn, generally, it's all about how is this gonna make your life easier? Like, what kind of things do you enjoy doing? Like, do you wanna learn more about, you know, hand scissoring? Do you wanna learn more about adding color? I mean, everybody has their own thing that they wanna learn more about, and for me, it's always been grooming and training. So, where those 2 meet is my thing, but everybody's got something that they
It's
just
the
are
jam.
driven by,
Yep.
you know?
Yep, and you are very good at it.
Thanks.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time away from your
It's
hubby
fun.
again tonight.
Again, right? Poor guy.
But
Blah, blah, dogs is what he's usually saying.
yep, mine goes, "Horses again?"
Mm.
Yeah, I'm going after my heart. So, all right. Well, if please follow us. I know we posted this on the Pet Pro Educators as well as on the Academy Facebook page. If thank you for joining us, and I'm going to say on Sunday at noon, I am going to be interviewing Lori Belanger,
Woo!
who is our lead instructor on the floor at the Academy and the general manager of the Academy. And
In
so
awesomeness.
yes, yes. So
Yes.
in that, then I'm going to be following with Katie Heckela, who is the new satellite site for her business is the new satellite site for the Academy in New Hampshire as well.
Another
So
awesome lady. Yeah.
another one, yes. And
Yeah.
wrapping up the month, we're going to have Mindy Dinwiddie on and then
Great.
Michelle.
Nice.
Have Michelle on too.
Nice.
So Michelle Knowles. So we've got 4 more interviews left for the month. And then next month I'm going to pull out some students and talk to students.
Ooh, awesome.
Oh, yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that'll be fun. I've already talked to a couple who are like, "Yeah, I want to do this because I want to see where they're
Yeah.
at and what our graduates have been doing, what they're up to,
Mhm.
where they're at, and just how they're doing." I know
Yeah.
we've got some I don't want to say winners out there, but yes, I have one graduate who is actually doing her own trade show and conference in Iowa.
Awesome.
Yes, the Teton. So very cool. I can't wait to get Gabby on. So
Yeah.
yeah, but all right. Well, Chrissy, thank you so much. And I will see all of our viewers on Sunday at noon. Have a
Fun.
great night, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
having me.
joining us.